This is the Plagmanrules Podcast. All right, we're back again. Another new edition today, and we've got a lot to talk about. And I'm going to be a little constricted on time today. I'm actually going to see both Chappaquiddick and A Quiet Place later today. So, yeah, in the meantime, here we have to talk about a couple of big celebrity deaths over the past weekend here. And we've also got a trailer for Jurassic Park Fallen Kingdom, and it's the second trailer, so we'll talk about that a little bit. And also, we've got a little bit of development now on a second Maleficent movie, so we'll do a rant about that because I won't get too worked up, I don't think, but yeah, I wanted to just comment on that really quick. Okay, so we're going to start out here, of course, with really the biggest news come out of the movie world here in the past few days, and that's the unfortunate passing of two titans in the film world. And then also, I did want to mention Barbara Bush passed away on, I believe it was Tuesday. So very sad to see her go. So just a quick mention there. But also in the film world specifically, we lost two big legends when it comes to filmmaking. We lost Milos Forman and R. Lee Ermy. Now, first of all, Milos, let's start with him. One of few guys to win Best Director twice. I mean, sure, we've had people like John Ford win it 4 times, and we've seen people like, most recently, Iñárritu has won 2 back-to-back. Joe Mankiewicz won 2 back-to-back back in the 40s and 50s, I think. And John Ford was another one who I think won back-to-back years. So Milos, though, his 2 Oscar wins are about 9 years apart, which is closer to actually what Spielberg did. I know I'm just naming off a bunch of directors that have won 2 Academy Awards. Also, Ang Lee, I think, had a pretty similar stretch to it. But the thing that I think we take away from Milos Forman's career is just how diverse this guy was in his projects. I mean, this is the same guy who did all these films. He did Man on the Moon. He did One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. He did Hair. He did Amadeus. He did People versus Larry Flint, and there's a few others in there. Some of which actually most of which I think I haven't seen those, but anyways, a lot of great work from this guy. Again, he did win 2 Academy Awards, and one of those, of course, was for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and that was one of only 3 films to win director, picture, the 2 acting races in the lead categories, and also a screenplay prize. That is very, very, very rare. So yeah, he was a terrific talent behind the camera. And really, I think, looking back on his career, I mean, Cuckoo's Nest is one of the best films of all time. I haven't seen People versus Larry Flint in a long time. I've only seen bits and pieces of it, so I can't say I've seen the whole film. What I've seen of it, I've liked a lot. Man on the Moon, I saw the first half of it when it was back on Netflix a few years ago, and I was intrigued by it, but I wasn't intrigued enough to finish it, just because it was kind of a lot of information and a lot of stuff going on in the first half, and it kind of caught me off guard. I thought it would be kind of like a smoother, slower biopic, which kind of slowly introduces you to who Andy Kaufman is, since he is such an eccentric character, if you will. And unfortunately, it was just like packed, just a whole bunch of stuff going on in like the first half hour. So I got, I was a little like, nah, I need to watch this another time. So I never did catch up with that. Maybe I will now. And plus, there is actually a documentary on Netflix, another one I haven't seen. It's Andy and Jim, which is kind of a behind the scenes feature on that film, and how Jim Carrey got into character, stayed in character, had to be addressed as Andy Kaufman, and so on and so forth. So yeah, those are good ones. Amadeus is one. I saw this one for the first time, I think 2 or 3 years ago, and I'd heard all this good stuff about it, and it had won, I think it won like 6 or 7 Oscars that year, including one for Foreman for director. Also won picture and actor, and a couple other prizes here and there, like costumes, I think, and production design, stuff like that. A big winner that year, and it's a beautiful movie. Now I saw the director's cut, the 3-hour one. I think it's the complete version and everything. And it's a beautiful movie, and it's one I actually showed it to a few of my family members, or at least the parts that there's a little like nudity and some stuff in there, so it's not exactly a family friendly movie. But I showed it to a couple family members, and they really that's not their type of movie. The period pieces and set in the 1800s and all that in Europe and all that. and they actually really really liked it, especially the parts where Mozart is just being Mozart, just being a complete genius, even though he's kind of an ass. which is you know which is a way that I think a few other movies have really borrowed from that. Of course, it was based on a play first, but I think a few other movies since then have kind of picked up on that, and they've played that a little bit. So that was one that I definitely say, if you haven't seen any of these movies, start with Amadeus. It's the longest one I think that he did in his career, and at the same time, it's got fascinating performances. Both Tom Hulce and F. Murray Abraham actually won the Oscar that year for Best Actor. Both of them are standout, flat out fantastic performances in that film. Actually, I think Tom Hulce probably should have won the Oscar that year over F. Murray Abraham, but it's both are really really great. I can't complain either way as long as one of them won. But regardless, that's one I can definitely recommend if you're kind of lost in the world of where to start. If you're not familiar with him, but you're fascinated by his career or by any of the send ups that other people have given him here in the past couple of days. So even though he hasn't done, and I think he retired somewhere in the 2000s there, but either way, we will miss him, and he left behind a really diverse, uh, really fascinating career that very few, I think, will be able to master. And also, we lost R. Lee Ermy. That I actually read about it late Sunday night, and I was like, shit, because I fucking love R. Lee Ermy. He's a fantastic guy. Haven't and I say that like I've met him or anything. No, no, but yeah, I mean, obviously the big one everybody talks about is Full Metal Jacket, and why not? The guy got a Golden Globe nomination out of it. Fantastic performance. Him and Vincent D'Onofrio, actually, their back and forths are, I mean, they make that movie. Now, for me personally, I'm a guy when it comes to the Kubrick films. I don't love every last Kubrick film because it's Kubrick. No, I judge it on the same level as every other film. I don't know why you'd have to judge them separately, but for me, that movie is like one of his best films for that first half hour, 40 minutes or whatever in the boot camp scenes. That's like Kubrick at his peak is in that first 40 minutes. But then as soon as we get to Vietnam, the whole movie goes to shit. And I could care less about the rest of the characters from there, like the Joker character and cowboy character that they set up in the first bit. Sure, they get a little bit to do in that second part, but otherwise it didn't really make too much of a difference. That boot camp stuff doesn't really affect them in a big way, to where all of a sudden, they start out as one character. After the end of the boot camp scene, they're separate characters. They're totally different. No, it's like you could have thrown in two different actors and have, two new roles take over for that second half of the movie. Well, it's actually more like the last 2/3 of the movie, and it wouldn't make a lick of difference. So that always bugged me. And then plus, it is just so lackluster once we get to the Vietnam stuff, because you can name off a half a dozen other films that do it better as far as the combat stuff and as far as the portrayal of soldiers in that point. I mean, obviously Platoon was out around the same time, and you had Deer Hunter and a few other ones there in the late 70s. Apocalypse Now, of course, all of which did it better, I think. And so anyway, so that's my thoughts on that. But that being said, though, I think D'Onofrio and R. Lee Ermey both should have been. I don't know if they should have been nominated, but they should have at least been considered more when it came to Oscars that year, because those two are just plain fantastic. I mean, you've got R. Lee Ermey as the totally in charge, rude, loudmouthed drill sergeant, which actually, a few years earlier had gotten what's his name from Officer and a Gentleman, his Oscar, Louis Gossett Jr. There we go. And we've seen, there's many drill sergeant characters in the course of history of film that really do take off and kind of become big personalities and stuff like that. But at the same time, though, you've got Vincent D'Onofrio, who plays Gomer Pyle in the film. And my God, I mean, just to see the transformations that character goes through, and by the end, his last scene. Obviously, if you haven't seen the movie, this is kind of giving it away a little bit. But his last scene in the movie, in the head, when he is just sitting there loading the magazine, getting ready to cause some shit. I mean, the face that he has, it scares the hell out of you. and then when Arlie Ermy comes in there and starts yelling at him, "What is this Mickey Mouse shit?" And goes on like that. And then again, when we cut back to Vincent D'Onofrio, who's now standing up and he's got the gun ready, it's like, oh my god! I mean, it is just, again, there's kind of a mention actually early on in the film of make a war face. It's like, that's a war face. So yeah, I love those, and of course Arlie Ermy I think helps make that work, because you have to have an antagonistic character like that for him, for the Gomer Pyle character to go off against, and that was terrific. Of course, Arlie Ermy had other stuff in his career. He had a couple of History Channel shows, which actually, I'm somebody who grew up with like 5 channels until I was about 6 or 7 years old. And then we got moved into a new house, and then we got a basic cable package and everything. So I had no idea what the History Channel was or all this stuff. So that was actually one of the first shows. I can't remember what they were called, but he had 2 shows, one of which was all about weaponry and stuff, and the other one was maybe just a standard like military lifestyle kind of show. I don't know. I haven't looked into them, but I remember those were 2 of the first cable shows that I actually watched when I was like, yeah, again, like probably 7 or 8 years old, and they were, I would say, like I said, I haven't, I don't have them on DVD or anything, but just something noteworthy to mention there. Of course, he also did a couple of voiceover parts in some cartoons and video games, most notably as Sarge in the Toy Story trilogy. And of course, the one role that I always remember him for, and I'm actually shocked that a lot of people agree with me on this, Saving Silverman. Yes. Now that's, for me, that's an underrated movie too. It's like, yeah, I'm not going to go off and say it's the best, romantic comedy of all time. It's definitely not the best romantic comedy of the early 2000s by any stretch of the imagination, but I mean, you look at it, pretty much everybody in that cast went on to be a big name. Of course, that was Jack Black in an early part of his career, an early stage. Amanda Peet, was fresh off of Whole 9 Yards and a couple other films, so she became something. Steve Zahn, I think he's actually right now starting to enter his second phase of his career, and he's becoming a much more recognizable name. Jason Biggs, of course, off of the American Pie movies, and Arlie Ermy, who, even though he's only in the movie for, I think, like maybe 3 or 4 scenes, he is still very memorable. Got a couple of very quippy, funny lines, and yeah, so that's one for sure. That if you haven't seen that one, at least Google or YouTube the clips of Arlie Ermy's parts, because those are very, very funny. It's actually, the whole movie itself, I think, does hold up. I haven't watched the whole thing all the way through in a while, but the movie is, I remember it as being a very, very fun movie to watch. So there you go. There's a couple recommendations for you. So yeah, it's very, very sad to hear that Arlie Ermy passed away, and he'll live on, of course, forever as Gunnery Sergeant Hartman from Full Metal Jacket, or as Coach from Saving Silverman, or Sarge from the Toy Story movies, or just as himself from his TV work. But again, that's another guy where he didn't really start out as planning to be an actor. It just kind of happened along the way of serendipity that he became a really famous actor in that regard. So rest in peace to those 2, and Barbara Bush once again, who passed away on Tuesday. All right, now let's get into some more prevalent movie news as far as actual stuff going on for future projects, and not just saying our goodbyes to some legends. First off, we had our second and supposedly final trailer for Jurassic Park: Fallen Kingdom, which is a goofy subtitle. And I'll tell you what, I don't think I was doing Plagmanrules Podcast when the first trailer came out. That first trailer was donkey dick. It was so bad. Like, I mean, I seriously, because I'm somebody who, I really enjoyed the first Jurassic World movie, like, more than most other people. I thought, with the exception of the first Jurassic Park, it was the best movie in the franchise. And even though, again, its story elements were pretty weak, yeah, some of, there's obvious plot holes and stuff. But overall, I enjoyed the fun spirit of the movie. And really, I think that was all that was really needed, I think, from that film. And I just had a blast during it. But the second one, though, I was like, that was kind of my warning, and my kind of my worry about it was the first one ended in a way where I'm like, well, that's a great return to the franchise and all that, but I feel like you've ended it in a way where we're good. We don't need anything else. But of course, there has to be something else. There has to be further sequels if Hollywood is going to remain Hollywood as it is right now, which is sequels, cinematic universe, all that stuff. So of course we get Fallen Kingdom now, and again, that first trailer was such balls. I mean, it was just embarrassingly bad for me. The effects looked awful. Now, of course, the movie was at that point like 7 months away, so they had time to fix it, and the effects. To be fair, they look a little improved in the second trailer, but not enough to make me say, wow, that looks a lot better as far as the effects go. The story itself, the basic outline of the story in the first trailer looked really dumb, and the actors, I mean, there was almost something in the way that they were going through their stuff where it looked like they were forcing themselves to be where they were doing these scenes, because they did not look like they were having a good time. So now we get the second trailer, and yeah, my expectations for this have dropped exponentially since seeing that first trailer. That first trailer, again, was just god awful bad. So the second trailer, it was all right. Now, it's a masterpiece compared to the first trailer, but that's not saying much. That's not a great improvement. You want the second trailer to really knock people's socks off. And it was interesting to get into the Rafe Spall character, who is at first an environmentalist, but in the trailer we see, oh, he's actually a bad guy. Okay, well, that would have been something nice to be saved for the movie, but oh well. We also got a little bit of a look at the Toby Jones character. I don't think he was in the first trailer, but he looks like some kind of politician or judge or something. We get a little bit more of Ian Malcolm, but again, it doesn't look like he's going to be a big part of this movie. He'll maybe just come in for like a cameo, kind of 2 or 3 minute scene where he testifies about the dangers of crossbreeding the dinosaurs and letting them continue and so on. So really, the sense I'm getting here, and I've only seen the second trailer once, by the way, but the sense I'm getting here is that we get the Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard characters back, really to go back and try to help some of the animals survive, even though the island is being destroyed by a volcano. And for me, that volcano subplot, that just sounds straight out of a 50s movie. Like a 50s B movie, like not even up to Ray Harryhausen level stop motion effects. It's like maybe a C movie, I guess. But anyways, so I've never really been enthralled with that story point either. So, for what that's worth. So it's like, these two and a couple, a team or whatever go back, and they're going to try to save a couple dinosaurs here and there. And Chris Pratt wants to see his Velociraptor hybrid thing, whatever the fuck it was. He wants to save it. I can't remember if it's a he or she. I think they were all she's. That's right. I think they said something about it in the movie. He wants to save her, but it's not going to be easy. And then they figure out, oh, the humans want to use these dinosaurs first as like bidding, on them to like buy them or something. I'm like, okay, that's a stupid idea, but hey, the rich will be rich. And then after that, it's like they want to crossbreed them again, and then they break free, and they're not just on the island anymore. Now they're in civilization, which of course is pretty similar to what happens in the third act of The Lost World, Jurassic Park. And that movie, if you look it up, I mean, for me personally, I give it a positive review, but barely. There's a lot of dull and story points again that don't make any sense, and there's a lot of stuff in that movie that is very problematic. So why you would want to do that again, I don't know, but I guess they're going to try it. Maybe they can do it better. I mean, I don't want to 100% judge this thing before I see it, but I don't know why you'd go back to that well. That's a polluted well. And the drinking water ain't going to give you nothing but diarrhea. I'm just going to leave it at that for a nice little analogy. So, yeah, I don't really get that point. And then the whole last shot where they have a new dinosaur that can now break into houses was, again, on the level of silly as that first trailer. It's like the last 20 seconds or so. Absolute garbage, once again. So it's a better trailer in the way of, okay, I get the sense of what the story is. And, I get the idea, okay, where these two characters, Bryce Dallas Howard and the Chris Pratt characters, where, okay, now I get the idea, because they've been mentioning for a while that there's going to be, like, humanitarian and those kind of arguments going on. And it's like, okay, well, now I see why they play into that, because the dinosaurs are really getting sold off almost in a slavery-style way. and it's the highest bidder and so on, and it's only the rich who are bidding on them. So it's like, okay, I get that idea, but it's like, anyways. So it really looks like Universal at this point, or at least the story point at this rate, is really desperate. It looks like they're just going back to doing the same thing over and over and over again. So I'm not 100% not gonna see it, but I'm on the fence. I'll wait. Once we get closer to its release date here, it's actually about 2 months away from now, pretty close to that. If a couple other TV spots or something comes out and it looks better, or it looks improved from these trailers, then okay, I'll give it a shot. Otherwise, I think I might skip this one, but I haven't 100% made up my mind on that yet. One movie for sure, though, I know I'm going to skip if it ever comes out is Maleficent 2. And okay, brief backstory here. Maleficent, of course, they did, I think it was in 2014. Angelina Jolie did it. It was, the live action readaptation, if you will, of Sleeping Beauty, except told from Maleficent's viewpoint. Now, that movie came out, and I saw it late after it had come out on, I think we rented it from Redbox one night or something. And that's a pretty terrible movie. I mean, absolutely god-awful garbage at some points. And for me personally, I know there's a lot of people who make the argument, but it's not a remake of Sleeping Beauty, so you can't expect it to be. I'm like, that's fine. For me, a lot of remakes or a lot of these other Disney animated to live action adaptations, they don't have to 100% copy the story of the original. Like the Jungle Book remake didn't do it. There were a couple of changes here and there to the Beauty and Beast one, and so on and so forth. A couple of the other ones there. And I'm fine with that, because the Jungle Book, the new story they told, and the new, additions and the new and subtractions, and what they, morphed it into, was a very, very entertaining story. And that one was actually on my top 10 list of that year. I thought it really worked. And for me, it worked better than the original animated film. With Maleficent, though, they take out a lot of the charm that original animated film had, and instead they put in obnoxious, stupid characters. Like, I could not believe when I was watching the movie, I'm like, so those three little fairies in the first movie, I think they're like normal size in the first movie, but in the live action one, they're like shrunk down to like thumb size. In the first movie, they were like the characters that we follow, more so than Maleficent. They have more screen time, I think, than Maleficent does. They have more screen time than the king, and I think even the prince. It's like they get a lot of screen time in the original film, and they're a big part of the story. Whereas in the live action edition, they are obnoxious, totally oblivious fools who go around being idiots instead of trying to raise a little girl who is in imminent danger from another type fairy thing, whatever the fuck they made that Angelina Jolie character. And it was just awful to watch, and it was not entertaining in the least. And for me, I think I got nominated that year for like production design or something like that, or costume design, whatever. Even that to me looked uninspired. It's like the world looked like reject things from Lord of the Rings, or even something like Man of Steel, which had just been out, and it just nothing looked right. Angelina Jolie, I never bought her as the Maleficent character. Well, number one, she's not actually Maleficent like the original. Instead, she's kind of like a wounded hero who's got a bit of a dark side, which is not the character of Maleficent at all. Again, it's fine if you want to open it up to a new adaptation, but if you're gonna do it new, make it something we like, not something that makes us say, okay, well, what are you doing here? Or bore us to death, like the Maleficent character in the new one. Kind of, it was a boring character too, and none of the side characters were interesting or even memorable. The king character again was kind of obnoxious at some points, and I know Charlton Copley for me is an actor who I like seeing him, and he's got talent, but he has never ever blown me away. Not even in something like District 9 where he got his big start, or something like Free Fire, which he just did last year. He's never blown me away as an actor, but I mean, he looked like he was lost at sea in that film. For me personally, he just looked like he was not just a wrong casting choice, but just they should have done that character 100% different from what they were going for. So, so suffice it to say, I am not even close to anywhere interested in what they could do with a further sequel, because number one, they wrap up the story in the first film in a way where everything has happened with the Sleeping Beauty arc. the spindle, touching the spindle and falling asleep on, forever on her 16th birthday or whatever the story was, which I think they changed it in the new one for, I don't know, for reasons. That whole thing is all played out. We saw the big dragon battle at the end, even though it wasn't Maleficent, I don't think. I think it was a different character, which was, okay, that makes that whole thing useless. So, what else is there to do? I mean, what do you do here? Do you cross over into another, into the Cinderella world, or try to do a cinematic universe type thing like that? Which for me personally, I don't know if that would work. I mean, I'm open to them trying it, but I mean, I need to have a little bit more build up before we go right into that in the second film. And even though this is going to be a film, by the way, that comes out at the earliest next year, and it'd be late next year, and we don't have a release date or anything yet. I don't think we even have a director yet. Maybe not. Maybe I might be wrong on that. But it's like, number one, why are you doing it? There's nothing left in the story to tell. Number two, the movie was not well received by critics. Audiences are, I think, probably about 60-40 on it, with 60% not liking it, 40% liking it. I know there's people that do like the movie, and that's fine. If you liked it for what it was, then okay, that's fine. But for me, I had a miserable time watching it, and I would never care to watch it again. But we're hearing Ed Skrein has now been cast in it. Now, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because of his casting, because I thought this thing was dead. Because I'd heard, rumblings, I think it was like 5 or 6 months ago, where they said Angelina Jolie had signed a deal with Disney to be in this, and to either, I don't know if she was going to direct or produce another adaptation of some kind, or another film of some kind. I can't even remember which one that was now, but it was not related to Maleficent. She was going to be the star in this one, and that was going to be it. She wasn't going to be a producer or a director or anything on it, and she was just signing that. Elle Fanning, I think, is also involved in this. Whoever else, I think, who's still alive from that first movie, probably they'll get back or they'll recast. It won't matter. But so I guess and now with Ed Skrein being cast as a villain character, again, we don't know who that villain is. Why is this still happening? I get that the first one did make a boatload of money, though. I think it was over 700 million worldwide. But the production budget, I think, was like between 150 and 200, somewhere in there. Like, the first movie was not super duper cheap either. So, after marketing costs and everything, they made money, but it wasn't like, they didn't make the amount of money they made on something like Jungle Book, or definitely not something like Beauty and the Beast. Like, it was down in the lower brackets there as far as the returns. But then again, the Cinderella movie did about the same amount as far as getting their money back, but that was a much better received film. That's why I haven't seen that one yet. But anyways, so I'm the whole reason I'm just bringing this up is, if I'm a Disney executive right now, and they're looking at this now, if they have a story idea, they have something that's come up, and they're like, okay, we're gonna redo this, we're gonna change it up a little bit, and we're gonna actually do something different with this story. That's and it can either be different in a way that's very entertaining and very fun, and that makes you say, okay, well, it's not the original Sleeping Beauty, but this is awesome. Something like that was what they did with Jungle Book, and what they did with Beauty and the Beast, and those both, I think, turned out pretty good. More so on Jungle Book than Beauty and the Beast. But all that aside, though, if they have an idea like that, then okay, show us, give us a little bit of a hint of that. Either do we can do a synopsis or something out this early that'll give us at least a hint of where the story is going. That's one way to get me on board with this. Otherwise, I don't know. Try to find a pretty heavy built cast, or get a good writer or director that can come onto this thing and really have a good hand on the production here. But otherwise, I don't know how else I'm going to get involved in this in a way where I'm like, I can't wait to see it, because, yeah, I would not care to see this at all, at least not with the present information we have. So I am hoping that Disney pulls the plug on this one, because nobody's asking for a Maleficent 2, at least nobody that I know, and a lot of people that I know didn't like the first one, so why even bother? And yeah, and we've seen movies before where they've gotten into the casting stage, and then the studios pulled the plug. There's been Superman movies in the 90s, like the Nick Cage one that never happened. They had a director, they had a few cast members. They were even, I think that one was actually a couple of weeks away from shooting, and then Warner Brothers got scared and pulled the plug. And there's various other projects like that. That's just one example. but it's been known to happen where we've gotten casting news. So that does not mean, that this is definitely going to happen. Now, in the next couple months or even the next few weeks, if we see Disney, saying, okay, we picked out this date on the calendar, this is our director, this is, announce a few more cast members or something, then that's when we know for sure that it's probably going to move forward and probably going to happen. If not, if we don't hear anything, I would say in the next okay, we'll put a ceiling of 6 months on this. If I don't hear anything in 6 months, I'm pretty much going to be on the assumption that this thing got a little ways into the pre-production stage, got a few cast members involved and all that, and then they pulled the plug. Which for me, I would be perfectly happy if they pulled the plug on this. But again, if we do hear a synopsis early on, or something, or we get some heavy hitters in the cast, or a really talented director comes on, okay, then I'll look at it again, kind of peek my head around the corner and see, okay, are you doing something that'll actually be good this time, or is it going to be more crap? Because if it's going to be more crap, none for me, thank you. Okay, that's going to wrap it up for today's edition of the Plagmanrules podcast. We'll be back again when more interesting stuff happens. Like I said, I am seeing both A Quiet Place and Chappaquiddick later today. I don't know. I might come back and do reviews for those next time, maybe. So that's going to be it. Thanks for watching, everybody.